Tamriel, a place of adventure, a place of wonder, a place of mystery. Heroes, villains, gods, Daedra, infinite stories, infinite legends, infinite prophecy, immensely vast. To know the history, told and untold, would be an ambitious undertaking. But I, for one, decided to take up that challenge for a living, and maybe turn a profit for it if I could. Case by case. This one didn't start out like my usual case. No, not at all. No, this one started off with an unusual thud at the door. Loud. It was Sundays, early morning, a stormy morning. Cloud cover, a slight fog. I had just risen up from my bed not too long ago. The night before, I was up late like most nights, some with work, some with research. Rarely a night just to myself. This night was spent reading Akaviri history tomes. I had collected them over my years traveling the mainland. These particular ones I had acquired from the library in Firewatch. They didn't want to let them go. But a bit of persuasion, a handful of septums, or two, and they were mine. Akaviri, yes. The Akaviri. So much about their culture was a mystery. Or even just flat-out lies. The last tome I was reading was on the Proving Festival. It's a tradition of the Akaviri, practiced in honor of their past ancestors. The festival being a way for the dead to view the world of the living, yes, if you can believe that, and provide judgments to their descendants. It is said that the tradition was continued by the Akaviri that arrived in Tamriel during the First Era. Of course, so much distance and time had been traveled and passed since, so who's to say the validity of these findings? I did that most nights, consuming what Nernly information I could before my eyes grew heavy from pondering and fell to their resting place. I wasn't much of a sleeper though. Bags under my eyes, bit of a rasp to my voice, slacking in self-care. I was heavily married to my new profession, but alas, the matter at hand. The stormy mornings here in Balmora were quite often. I finally rose early with them to help give myself peace of mind and sort it. Think about whatever tasks I was on about that day. Today, though, was one of those rare blank slates. A blessing of our kind. No urgent issues or matters. An extreme rarity for me. Odd, you could say. The rain was pelting the old wooden door and stone cobble Balmora city streets just beyond it. You could smell the city river water's muck being stirred about. Slaughterfish were sure to be out in numbers. Mud crabs most likely on the hunt. Fishermen out for their early catch, if not for the incoming distant thunder. I was sitting at my table, eating some leftover warmed-up crab meat stew when the noise came from outside. The loud thud that began this all. I looked up Not startled, just curious. It was definitely at my door, but not the usual type of sound you hear. Not a knock, not even someone falling against it, perhaps. Not a sound I could recall hearing at all in my days. Well, that I could ever recall. Not since my time here in the West Gas region had begun, at least. Something was off about it. Something I couldn't quite place. The room was faintly lit by a few dim lanterns, a couple old candle holders I had acquired from inns I had stayed at over the years. Something of a guilty pleasure of mine. I made my way up from the table and across the creaky floor of the room I rented. I used the room as my small independent used bookstore, tucked behind the South Wall Corner Club. A home and a cover. I continued to move towards the entrance to investigate. I reached out to open the door inwards, but took a brief pause to listen before I did. Erring on the side of caution, a noise so out of place, I had to be sure. I stood still. Nothing. Just the rain slapping the rocks on the ground outside and wetting the old faded wood of the door. I grabbed the metal door loop and pulled it inwards, and to my surprise there was a dagger lodged into the door. At about face height. The dagger itself was piercing a small leather-bound bag. Also a piece of parchment to the wood. I took a step forward, slowly, to peek my head around the edges of the door frame, to look around its side, but I was met with nothing. No dogs, no cats, no rats. No early morning shopkeepers on their way to set up and open up shop. The market most likely delayed due to weather. Not a bagger to be seen even. Almost entirely, not a single soul was littering the streets, beside one patrolling guard off in the distance far too far away to have placed it here, his torch blinking in and out in the wind. There was only just clouds and rain and thunder in the distance. A few lanterns were still on, here or there in front of buildings. And one of the watchtowers in sight in the distance could be seen flickering away in the rain. But nothing. Nothing was stirring about. I heard one drowned-out song call of a silt strider, but nothing else. Beautiful. I love that sound. I took a step back and took a closer look at the dagger. It was a steel dagger, pristine condition, immaculate. Not a mark or a scratch on it. I could actually see my reflection in it perfectly. My teeth. Ugh. The design was Breton, perhaps? It had either never been used or whoever was the owner of it took immense care of it after every use. Whatever that use may have been, I couldn't tell. There was something more to it, though. Something off. A feeling, sort of. There seemed to be a slight glow or hum to it. A buzz. Almost entirely missable. Invisible but not. The wet of the rain bouncing off of it, though, made it ever so slightly visible. Like a haze. A shimmer. I reached out and I grabbed the leather-bound handle with one hand, put my other hand under the leather pouch. Pulling the dagger from the door, the pouch fell into my hand with the clink of coin rustling about. Netch leather, I think? The parchment fell driftingly towards the ground, swaying back and forth. I quickly caught it between the free fingers in the pouch hand before it hit the wet cobblestone ground. I stepped back into the room with everything in hand. I passed the door and I kicked it closed behind me, and it clicked shut. I walked back towards the table. The room, it was divided. A library of sorts to the left of maybe 100 books and tomes I had collected over the last few years. A makeshift wall down the center of the room with my bed and kitchen on the other side to the right. Once I reached the table, I set down the dagger. I pushed aside the bowl of crab meat stew and I sat down. I tossed the pouch down with a thud and sat the parchment beside it. Naturally, I wanted to open the pouch. First, after hearing that sound of coin, I did well for myself. Lived a modest life of travel and work. I had seen much of Tamriel, but this was a fair-sized pouch. The clink of coin had as heavy a weight to it as the pouch itself did. But then I noticed the quality of the writing. Yes, the writing on the parchment. In the flickering candle light, I laid it flat before me. I reached it across the table, bringing the brass candle holder closer so I could easier examine it. The water outside somehow didn't smear or smudge any of the writing. It was perfect still. Almost dry? Still. In fact, strangely it was. How very peculiar. Not something I had seen to this degree in my years of study. Looking it over, I could see it was a letter. Quite a long one. Very high quality writing. A high skill level of cursive. Neat. Sharp. Almost poetic even. Noble even. Not a quality you usually see unless near a castle, fort, or one of the province's capital cities. Suddenly, the sight of my job title pulled my attention. I darted my eyes to the top of the parchment and read, "Confidential investigator. Your skills do not go unnoticed by us. We have been watching your work, keeping up on your successes. We see your worth and are in need of your assistance. At this time, we cannot divulge our party, but we have an urgent matter that requires your mind. Promptly put, rumors abound. There will be an assassination attempt on a head of the Imperial cult here in Morrowind. We don't know by who. We don't know who the target specifically is yet themselves, but from our sources, it will be in a little over 1 month's time, perhaps around that of Pelinal's mid-year celebration. In order to proceed with a plan of action, we need you to provide us with a detailed dossier of the cult itself and its figureheads. With as much information as possible to be gathered in that time, it will help us to decipher and narrow down possible targets. And the reason as such they would be so. The coin provided should be enough to get you started, with more to be delivered with each drop of information from you. We have our eyes abound for you. When you have sufficient swaths of information, leave all of your new findings daggered to a back alley door, wherever you may be, and you shall receive payment when you awake. Time is of the essence. Be well." Stunned. Speechless. No words. Not only were they aware of my private investigator work, but also my identity and place of residence. It wasn't signed, and they seemed to know me all too much without my own knowing. And that fact in itself, knowing, is my job. My clients pride me on my secretive and private methods of work. I've worked for House Telani, I've worked for House Redoran before, the Thieves Guild, the Fighters Guild, government officials too many to count, mages, jarls, I think even a vampire once, an army general, but this seemed like something more. And assassination? Beyond the weight of anything I'd ever come to blows with in my field. And it didn't seem like an offer either. It seemed like more of an order. This was heavy, but so was that purse of coin.